Welcome back, everyone, for another Gamebug video review. This time we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. Not ghosts, Ghost of Tsushima. And I've got here with me Mr. What is it again?
Ignis.
Is that it? I thought there was that extra bit on the end. That's it. It's just Ignis. Because he's got red hair. Doesn't it mean fire?
Yeah, it does.
Talk louder. So yeah, this is his second video review, and this time he played this. What did you play it on?
I played it on PS4. It's the console came out on, but on the Pro.
The Pro.
Yeah,
all right.
Good to know.
Console exclusive, made by Sucker Punch, who made Sly Raccoon and Infamous, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. Maybe they made something before and we never knew.
I don't think so. I was having a look over their stuff before, and I think they actually, those are pretty much the only titles they've ever made, which is funny because they've gone from making this, mascot-driven, funny, cute platformer to, hey, you could be a good or a bad superhero to now you're a samurai in ancient Japan and you can go and decapitate people, so...
What a wide variety. But then again, you had Killzone teams going to Horizon New Dawn, so that was a bit of a weird change too. So let's kick it off then. So obviously it's not a sequel to anything. This is brand new IP.
Correct.
So give us a rundown of the story.
So the game is set during the real historical first invasion of Japan in 12th century. They have a fictional character named Khotun Khan, who is, I guess, leading the invasion. He's the primary villain of the story. And the samurai of the island of Tsushima all rally up to go and attempt to battle the Mongols. And it's a complete and utter failure. This Japanese samurai are very honorable, very kind of we both line up, we bow, and then we kind of battle, and whoever is more skillful wins. And the Mongols were very much, and you'll see it all throughout the game, they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. So the samurai are completely crushed, basically completely wiped out, more or less, and Khotun Khan essentially nearly kills the main character, Jin Sakai, throws him off of a bridge in one of them good old-fashioned first bosses that you can't actually win against, because I did try. Nothing happens.
Was that a spoiler that you just said then?
Nah.
Okay.
It's literally at the beginning of the game.
All right.
And that's kind of more or less the story. So it's about Jin attempting to liberate the island of Tsushima from the Mongol Empire.
And get revenge.
Yeah, correct. Get revenge for all of his fallen samurai brethren. And it's really fascinating, I guess, story, because it takes this very tried and true trope, I guess, of samurai are all honor bound, and really kind of turns it on its head as Jin very early on realizes that just walking up in front of all of the Mongols and asking to duel every last one of them isn't the way to win, right? So he resorts to all manner of things, whether that be assassinating, whether that be poisoning, whatever the case might be, in order to win, which is exactly what the Mongols were doing. And it's this really beautiful, I guess, duality, because there are a lot of supporting characters in the game, and they'll either fall into one of two camps that either support what he's doing or are very against what he's doing. And there's this very interesting, I guess, moral dilemma that he has throughout the game of is what I'm doing right? Can I justify what I'm doing, and what does honor mean? Those sorts of things, which it's really fantastic, actually, from a story perspective. It's something that I've never really seen done before. I didn't think I was going to care too much, especially probably in the first 5-6 hours. I was like, it's whatever. But by the end of it, I was especially, because there's a lot of side missions and stuff. The main story is pretty standard, to be honest, but a lot of the side missions let you build your relationships with a lot of the supporting characters. I ended up really caring about a lot of them, and a lot of those stories get really dark, surprisingly dark. I wasn't expecting them to go to some of the places that they go to. You know, like for example, sometimes some of the stories go to things like child trafficking, human trafficking, all those sorts of things, which is just crazy, 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 and just very dark. So, but all in all, like I was actually very impressed from a story perspective.
So score-wise, out of 5, what would you give the story?
I'd give it a pretty solid 4. I think the main story is fine. I think the side missions, and thankfully there's a lot more of them than there is main story content, the side missions are what really redeem the game. The supporting characters really redeem the game, and most importantly, the main villain redeems the game. Khotun Khan is incredibly charismatic. You almost can't hate him. Like he's a man who respects the Japanese. He's a man who understands the Japanese. He's a man who is more or less.
He learns the language, doesn't he?
Correct. Yeah. His whole thing is that he learns the language. He teaches all of his army to learn the language. And his whole thing, pretty much every time, is when he goes up to a settlement, all of the Mongols will do it. Where they'll be like, "If you surrender to us, you live. We will let you all peacefully continue to live. But if you do not, we will kill you." And it's very, very difficult to hate him. I think it's very easy to hate the Mongols in general, but not him. And Jin, unfortunately, is not that interesting on his own. It's a lot of the other characters that make Jin interesting. So I think 4 is a pretty solid score for it.
Okay. So next we'll move on to visuals, and I have my own thoughts on this from what I've seen, but we'll let you talk about what your thoughts are.
So this game looks really, really, really pretty. I'm a huge fan of it. I know that you have some different opinions to me on this. I guess the one thing that I will say is the grass is just so pretty. It's so good.
And
it's
the
so
leaves.
well animated, and the leaves and all of the greenery looks really nice. Trees look really nice. The environment, surprisingly, really colorful and varied. It's a very vibrant game. I wouldn't have expected it.
I would say the opposite. But I just played Paper Mario Origami King, which is the brightest, colorful, most vibrant game I've ever played in my life.
Well, I initially thought it was just going to be just a lot of green, but there's an area called the Golden Forest, which is literally just golden trees everywhere. There are areas with you can go from golden trees to a swamp to a bamboo forest to bright red maple leaves falling down, and then you go to a flower of purple, like a field of purple flowers, and there's just all of these colors that it almost doesn't seem like it fits. But it's incredibly vibrant, I think. And the colors strangely do look a little washed out, I think.
That's my problem. A lot of things look washed out.
Yeah.
But it makes it more realistic, I guess.
Yeah, correct. It makes it look more realistic, I think, at least. So from a graphical perspective, I think that's it. Well, I guess, the character, people... The only gripe that I have... People look kind of weird in this game.
Jin's face does look a bit weird.
Yeah,
it's just the shape of his head doesn't look normal.
No, it doesn't.
And we all know what Japanese people look like, and it does not look like how Jin looks.
No, it doesn't. It's pretty clear to see that they've used a lot of mocap and stuff on this, but
yeah.
It feels like the proportions of the face and
it's
the body
like
aren't
the
right.
face is okay, but it doesn't match the size and shape of the head.
Correct.
It's
weird. And the head doesn't match the body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird. And it's not just him. There are a bunch of characters that are I don't know if I'm okay with this. Some of them look fine, but some of them look really weird.
My only issue is just... But then again, I'd say this is an open world game. So graphically, it can't be, a 10 out of 10 visually because it's got so much going on with it. It's so big of an area. But you know, every now and then you'll see some textures that look pretty wonky. Not as bad as Final Fantasy VII Remake. But the water, you know, it's my favorite. Water looks pretty shit.
Water doesn't look great.
Does not look good. But, you know, as you said, it's all about the grass and the leaves, and they look really good. And that was what was shown off in the trailer. So, obviously, they had to put forth the effort into that. So, yeah, score-wise, what would you give it?
I'd give it a 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah, with the 0.5 taken off for the...
But what about animation as well?
No, the animations are really, really, really solid, I think.
Okay.
Not too much else to say. Like, it's not outstanding or anything like that. This is no Red Dead 2. This isn't like The Last of Us 2 where characters are incredibly well animated.
No, The Witcher 3.
But I mean, characters are animated well. There's not much else to say about it. You know, horses move like horses, people move like people.
So 4 out of 5. All right,
4.5.
4.5. Sorry, that's what I meant. So we've got story-wise a 4, then we've got a 4.5 for graphics. All right. So next on gameplay, this is the key thing of this game, because this game is what, 50 hours long or 40 hours long or?
So I got the platinum a couple of days ago. The total amount probably about 50 to 60 hours. Story content wise, maybe 15, 20 hours. And then the remainder is more or less side missions, and then like collecting all of the various like fox shrines, bamboo strikes, which increase like your resolve, which is what you
lots of collectibles.
Yeah, a lot of collectibles and stuff. Yeah.
So okay, so does this game justify its length?
I think so. I've actually been talking with a couple of people who say that they don't think it does, that the game gets a little boring, probably about like 50 to 60% of the way through from like a combat perspective. I personally didn't have that. Up until right when I finished, the combat was still just as satisfying as it was when it first started. I think a very common problem that I see people having, that I myself experienced as well, was stealth. I think mechanically stealth is nowhere near as good as the melee combat is, which is unfortunate because they put you in positions quite often where you are forced to use stealth, where you cannot get alerted, where you can't get alerted, you can't kill anyone, things like that. And it's fine, but given how incredibly fluid the melee combat is, it feels very weak in comparison. The melee combat is just incredibly fluid. It is so much fun to play. Think kind of like a Batman Arkham Asylum or something like that, like the Arkham series. Pretty similar with your, I guess, like your lights, your heavies, and then there's like a parry or a dodge button. But there's a lot that you can do with it, surprisingly.
And we're not talking about Dark Souls difficulty levels. We're just talking about more of a Ninja Gaiden sort of thing on the harder difficulties.
No, I don't think so, actually.
Not even?
No, I played the game on hard, I guess, as you're well aware of, and the only time I actually really struggled was at the beginning. Then once I kind of got it, I didn't really struggle again for the rest of the game. The game's actually quite easy, I think. There's the new difficulty that they released very recently. Lethal difficulty, I think it is. I haven't tried that yet. I would imagine that would be really, really, really hard. But the game itself is surprisingly not that hard. And I think that's because the game has so many collectibles based around increasing your health, around giving you... the other thing that I think makes it very easy is like the whole idea of resolve. So resolve is like... you use it to heal, but you also use it to use skills. So because of needing to use it for both, you have a lot of points to use to heal. at pretty much all times outside of the first couple of hours of the game. And because of that, the game is very lenient, and there are a lot of very specific items, kunai, that are
one hit kills, pretty much.
not one-hit kills, but you remember the batarangs in Batman in the Arkham series? How if you were ever in trouble, you just press the batarang button and then they get stunned and then you can kind of do whatever you wanted? Same thing with kunai, except sometimes they just kill things outright. But it's a situation where if you are ever in any sort of trouble, you can just press kunai and then you are not in trouble anymore. There are a lot of very, very, very powerful skills that you get in the game, I guess, that make you feel more like a samurai or a ninja or whatever, but that also kind of break the game as well in a way. So I think from a difficulty perspective, it's actually quite easy, to be honest.
So gameplay you enjoy, though? You enjoy the fluid nature of the combat?
Yeah.
You don't feel like it sort of wears its welcome towards the end?
No, I don't. The other thing that I'll say, actually, and it's something to, I think, be applauded, is the trophy list. So I know it's a small thing, but I know people care about it. So the collectibles, they don't actually want you to get all of them. They want you to, collect 20 artifacts or collect, they want you to get all the shrines, or they want you to get, all of, the health upgrades. They want you to get all of, the resolve upgrades. But for getting different colors for your sword, or, getting, journal entries and things like that, they don't want you to get all of them, which is awesome. It's not one of those things where they expect you to spend 200 hours in this open world collecting everything.
So costumes and that, do they affect your health and stuff like that, having different armor sets?
So...
Or is it just cosmetic?
So there are a number of armor sets in the game, and each of them have different, I guess, skills that they offer. There'll be one, for example, that will increase the amount of fog of war that clears when you're riding around the open world and you can see more stuff. And there's one that'll make it so that you get spotted. It's harder for enemies to spot you. And there's ones that make you take less damage, deal more damage. There's ones that, make you terrify enemies, things like that. So every set has its own unique benefit. There are a couple that are just very, very, very overtly more powerful than the others. But they're all individual. The masks and the hats don't give you any sort of benefit at all. They're purely cosmetic. It's purely just your armor, I guess.
And are you leveling up in the game? Do enemies just get harder as you progress? Or is there areas where they're just impossibly hard and you need to come back at a later time?
So that's dependent on how much you upgrade your weapon, your sword, your bows, how much you upgrade your armor. It's dependent. There are skill points, I guess, that you can get through the game.
But are they from experience points, or
they're from completing side quests or things like that? The skills honestly don't really do that much, but the sword upgrades are huge. You get 2 or 3 sword upgrades, and enemies that were difficult are now just a total cakewalk. You're killing them in 1 or 2 hits.
Okay.
So that's, I guess, the level system that they've got in place. I could see it, people intentionally making it more difficult for themselves by just not upgrading anything and just running through the game. I like that they give you that and they don't force you to get stronger if you don't want to. It just kind of makes sense to.
Yeah. Okay. And score out of 5 for that one?
I'll give that a 4.5 as well. 4.5.
4.5. So it's getting very high scores so far. All right. On to the sound department. What about this one?
So sounds good.
I think voice acting, the option to have it all in Japanese or in English is awesome.
Yes, it is. Having both the English track and the Japanese track is awesome. I've listened to both. They are fantastic in both. With the exception that sometimes in the English dub, they kind of sound like they're trying to be Japanese, but then sometimes they're just not. which is kind of weird. But otherwise, everyone does a really good job. Emotions are very well portrayed. A lot of those sorts of things. Same thing in the Japanese. The Japanese is very well. In my opinion, you have to play. It makes sense to play it in Japanese. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, you should play everything in Japanese because Japanese is the best. But when you're in ancient Japan, in a realistic world, playing a Japanese guy, it makes sense for them to be speaking Japanese to each other, right? It's weird when you're playing in English and Kotun Khan is like, I learned Japanese. And it's like, but you said that in English.
Yeah.
So the only... I have to say it. Why the hell is the game dubbed in English? Like, the characters' mouth flaps, the way their mouths move, it's to the English. So when you have the Japanese playing, it doesn't look right. And it really bothers me.
Easiest answer to that is it was made by an American studio.
Correct.
If it was made in Japan, it would have been the other way around.
Yeah, I know. It's very weird. It's even towards the end of the game, it's kind of like when you watch those like really cheesy kung fu movies.
Yeah, where they're dubbed very badly.
Yeah, but like on purpose.
Yeah.
That's kind of almost what it feels like.
And what about music though?
Musically, it's all very traditional. All very traditional Japanese. A lot of wooden flutes. You know, a lot of exactly what you'd expect from a game set in Japan, right? The music isn't everywhere, but it's there when it counts and when it matters. A lot of the time you're just kind of riding around in the open world and you might hear someone playing a flute in the background or things like that, but a lot of the time it's just you listening to the wind blowing and just kind of riding your horse around. But yeah, absolutely. There's music in the combat. There's not music when you're in like villages and stuff, but instead it's actual peasants playing flutes, playing shamizens, playing like all of the traditional Japanese instruments that make it feel more authentic. Mm-hmm. There is a soundtrack that's there, and when it's there, it's great. But I actually kind of like how minimalist it is throughout the game. A lot of just kind of, this is Japan, and if you're riding a horse in the middle of nowhere, I don't think you'd have this epic score playing, right? But it does happen as well from time to time. A lot more in kind of like the main missions and stuff.
So score-wise for sound?
A 4. I give it a 4.
4, alright. Why not higher?
The mouth thing really bothers.
But the mouth thing is not really... That's not really a sound issue, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That's more of just... It's not even animation, because they can't animate it to both.
Yeah, I guess. Nah, it's a 4-5.
Alright, I've made him bump it up. 4.
It's a 4-5. Yeah, that's true.
Alright, so now's the awesomeness section. What stood out, either good or bad, of this game? What made it so enjoyable or so horrible? Or
I think just the world itself. Like I was very... The game was very much a surprise to me. It wasn't what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting it to be so traditionally Japanese. Like the game feels almost like a realistic sort of Red Dead Redemption style world where it's super grounded in this reality, but it's not. Like I love that there are stories where you'll walk up to peasants and they're like, oh my god, I was out last night, fishing, and I heard noises, and it has to have been like a kappa, which is like a Japanese demon, right? And you'll go and explore it, and it's just like some bandits went and killed a dude, I love how grounded it is that people believe that these things are real. But when you go and look at it, it's like, well, no, there's an explanation for it. There's an explanation for
science!
Everything. Pretty much, which is really cool. I really love the world, I guess. It's so much fun to just ride around and just look around and just exist in, So that really, to me, is the best part of the game. I spent way too long just kind of walking around just like villages and stuff.
And finding random things along the way.
Yeah, correct, absolutely.
So out of 5?
It's a bit, to be honest, it's a bit of bias for me because of how much I love, I guess.
It is your
Japan
review.
In general, but I'm going to give Awesomeness a 5.
Whoa, awesome. 5 out of 5. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
So, final words for everyone who's thinking about it, who doesn't know anything about it. Like, what would you say overall about the game?
I think this game is definitely worth it. I think if you're a fan of pretty sleek combat, if you're a fan of something like the Arkham series combat wise, or even Lord of the Rings, like the Shadow of Mordor series, things like that, Shadow of War, I think combat wise this is going to feel very at home to you. I think if you've never played them before, you should absolutely give this game a shot. Even if you're not a huge fan of Japan in general, this might be the game that converts you. You know, it's very respectful to the culture as well, which is something that I really appreciated. Look, anything exclusive on a Sony platform these days is gold, and Ghost of Tsushima
Except for Days Gone.
I like to believe that wasn't an exclusive. But pretty much everything else really it's gold, right? And
they're essentially the new Nintendo.
Correct. Except that they make games that aren't for children. Not that Nintendo games are for children, but
they're not, highly PG. Let's be
correct. Honest. Yeah. So it's a fantastic game, and if you haven't gotten it, you should get it. And if you have got it, you should play it again because it's just that good, right?
So what have we got? So overall, we had a 4 for story, 4.5 for graphics, 4.5 for gameplay, 5 for sound, or was it 4.5? Yeah. Sorry, for sound, 5 for awesomeness.
Yes.
All right. I don't know what that's going to work out to be, but on the website, if you go to www.gamebug.com.au, on the website, it'll tally it up. It'll give you that little total score, but it's a good score. I mean, anything, over a 3.5 is good and great. Essentially, for our scoring system, a 2.5 would roughly be a 5 out of 10 or a 50%. So, take with it what you will. A 4.5 is a 9 out of 10, a 90%. So overall, I think this is a game for people who are just, especially, with these crazy times in lockdown, you want something that you just pick up and you chuck in 50 hours into, it's going to keep you entertained. It's definitely not like a lot of other Sony exclusives that are very much like a 10, 20 hour game.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised at. I didn't expect that when they were making it, that's what it would be.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be that long either. I kind of like the length. It's because, look, my biggest gripe with these open world games is
padding,
right? These games are, oh my God, look, this game's 200 hours long. And it's like, I don't have 200 hours to put into a game.
Unless it's amazing.
Unless it's incredible.
And that's the only reason why The Witcher 3 I played for so long, because I was so engrossed in the side stories. But other open world games, it's like fetch quests and boring crap that you just like, this doesn't need to be there. And I hate when those get in the way of the actual campaign where they're like, you got to do a bunch of side quests just to continue the main story. Correct. It's like, I'm not doing that. So he's given it a good score. Check out trailers. Check out our review. Obviously, you're watching it. There's going to be footage in it. So, yeah, please subscribe, like, follow, go to our Facebook, go to our Instagram, which is GamebugAU for Instagram and Facebook, and then our website, www.gamebug.com.au. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.